Welcome to the Myofascial Magic in Action podcast. We're really excited to be beginning a series that actually looks at the movements that we do in the Myofascial Magic in Action program and why they're so important to all of us. The first one is really challenging the myth of why we think we are designed for core strength and dynamic stability. Sounds pretty reasonable, right? It's just that that's not what human bodies are designed for, is it, Paul?
No. And in our eagerness and anticipation to develop these strategic ways of getting stronger and attaining the longevity of our lives we all seek, we tend to get very, very strong in a stationary position and not be so familiar when we apply that strength we've attained in any movement protocols off the foundation we learnt it in. And that's what's quite misleading. People get strong in a stationary environment, but the world is moving and we should move with it.
It's also the terrain that we walk on and the terrain that we embody, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things that we do in MMIA is unravel this myth of core stability where we're strengthening, but we get people on our bodywork tables suffering from things that I think they think are minor injuries or inflammations or what we would call repetitive strain injuries due to whatever mixture of things they say. But often these so-called stability is causing restriction. So shall we look at one of the clips from MMIA program where we teach practitioners how to work with these fundamental principles, one of which in Rebound, the first of the 5 R's, is finding rhythm. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Well, all movement is an animation of your ability to create and sustain a particular rhythm depending on the movement requirements necessary to be successful without crashing or struggling unnecessarily. So rhythm is the key to all movement, isn't it? It's like the rhythm to the music, the rhythm to the dance, and it's the rhythm to yourself into your particular existence with your own shape. So when we go into Rebound initially, it's firstly recognizing if we focus on stabilizing, which creates rigidity and restriction, and we focus on having this nice stiffness and foundation that doesn't move, when we move, we're not as familiar with the instability necessarily, our ability to control this wobbling, and wobbling should not so frowned upon. So what we find in this Rebound experience, it allows you to expose yourself to the vulnerability of moving off your foundation and a security of base. And as you're moving, then you start to recognize how you stimulated that movement, whether it's forward, backwards, or in any other particular direction we might like to travel. And it's having that experience and putting yourself in a situation where you have to learn how to stimulate it, how to produce that initial motion of locomotion, but then understanding that you don't only accelerate, because all too often don't we use momentum so much that it's very hard to stop going the way you're going, like you're on a down slope of a ski. Yeah, you're just in one direction. So it's very important that we understand how to decelerate in motion, almost like you're driving with the brakes on slightly, so you can choose to speed up or slow down so that transitioning and changing direction becomes as efficient as it could be throughout all of the movement.
And I really appreciate what you're saying here, because what we are doing in MMIA is optimizing reorganization in the moment, but we're not trying to do it as a mental exercise because movement isn't an intellectual process, right? What we're doing is building into the body through micro movement and beginning from ground to crown, this stunning and innate ability to literally restore our blueprint, right?
Correct.
Our ability to rebound.
But our ability to move around our environment is our gift that we're allowed to explore and go around and change and explore like we used to be, hunter-gatherers and explorers of our world, until we became very, if you like, isolated to one region and one type of society with one terrain. And we've lost the enthusiasm to challenge the terrains that we might want. And that's where we try to restore that and give everybody the opportunity to change the terrains that they become so familiar and reliant upon, and understand that we as a human being, we should be on one leg more than we're ever on two. Because if you're on one leg, it means you're changing direction and you're moving. Whereas if you're on two,
if you can.
Well, if you can. But if you're on two legs, then you turn into a kangaroo or you sit down a lot. Because two legs on the floor means you're not moving anywhere at any particular speed or with any particular purpose. So the first thing is to establish rhythm of movement. And that's what we see in this clip here that we're going to give as an example, is watching how you move towards somebody and how you move away from them. And noticing by putting yourself in that particular situation, if you don't control your deceleration of motion forward, then you'll clash into somebody. And this somebody happens to be our fabulous colleague, Helen, but it could be a wall, it could be a car, it could be an object on a sports pitch, it could be a tree that you're going towards, it could be anything that happens to be in front of you. And if you're not mindful of how you're creating this capacity to adapt and change in motion, then you'll always crash because of motion. And then you're resistant to doing movement confidently. So it gives you a huge amount of confidence in yourself and your ability to stimulate movement well at the right tempo and the right speed with the right consistency, that whenever you need to change or stop, you can do so without fear or threat of having to change direction.
So the beauty of this clip is obviously it's all been set up very beautifully, and we've got the tentegral organization whereby we're using the ball to literally animate how we hold our whole architecture.
Yeah.
But the key is working with micro movements. And I think I'm right in saying, I know from the experience of being here, and we chose me and Helen because we've got very different physiologies, is that we are honoring our relationship with the ground primarily, and ground to crown in this soft matter. And I think the myth that we have to bust here is human beings do not have cores. They belong in apples, not people. And absolutely no way were we designed for stability. We're designed to get out of trouble, move towards pleasure and enjoyment, or if you like, move towards eating and run away from being eaten.
Yeah.
And finding our way very lightly through our lives with the minimum of disturbance. I know we have different body types. That's for a future series. But in this clip, you are so beautifully bringing me to a place where I can decelerate in micro movements, micro timing. It's almost like preempting an issue so that you know I'm being trained to move out of trouble. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you might remember the old days when we had manual cars and you had to use your gear stick and the 3 pedals beneath your feet. That we used to have emergency brakes, and every time you touch the brakes, the car would screech to a halt. And often people find themselves in this predicament when they're walking or running or sprinting or jogging, that they for some whatever reason, they don't know how to slow down. They only know how to stop. And that puts a huge amount of stress and trauma on a body that is now having to do something very inefficiently. And then we transitioned as we got better at engineering. We created the ABS system where you apply the brakes, but it doesn't apply such a violent cease of motion. It allows you to slow down gradually, so steer your way out of trouble. Well, God bless, that's already in our system. It's already in the very fabric of our body, because that's what makes us and amplifies this anti-stretching tissue, because it recognizes that it has a natural boundary, a natural capacity to change direction very, very confidently and very elegantly to maintain the efficiency of its reaction. So that's why it's very important that we change the tempo. We stimulate this awareness that, yes, you are going forward most of your life, but you must have equal capacity to go backwards. You must be able to retract slowly and confidently. And that's where the micro introduction is. It's just so invaluable that you have this micro adjustment in the microsecond of requiring it to be stimulated intuitively. And that intuitive nature of moving is often lost on us because we often delegate movement to other people rather than rely upon ourselves to do it. Where we're shopping or we're doing various daily tasks in our life, we tend to delegate them out these days. And then when we require our body to be refined and perform optimally, it's often lost the art of being able to do it and recall those skills naturally. So this is a great opportunity, as you see in this clip, of the various shapes and sizes that we all are, to return to what we're naturally capable of doing, which is moving with absolute grace and confidence, power and athleticism, or just very subtle changes of direction. And we're going for a stroll. It really will match and assist everybody in retaining their ability to move with ease.
And it's the waking up of an innate ability rather than the reinforcing of something we have to learn. And I think that's what's so beautiful and so surprising for people when they discover it, that we're reanimating something that's actually our blueprint, right? We're remembering in many ways, but we're also guiding the body to have this as a pocket full of resources so that it can like instinctively do what it's designed to do rather than having been compressed down into these false parameters of dynamic stability and core strength.
But they're very stationary attributes of a human being. Whereas the realization that the quality of life is always reflected in the quality of your ability to walk. And what this does immediately is remind you that you should have a spring in your step. There should be a natural grace to spring and rebound in motion, which a lot of us have lost. But it's not lost forever. Like, it's right there for you to regain how to access and use it straight away. However, by reimagining what might be and then realizing and recognizing how you achieve it often makes people shudder and go, oh my God, I didn't know I was capable, or oh my God, how hard is it to return to it because I've just taken it for granted. So it's a really fun way of restoring that natural spring in your body, but it really is a prerequisite for a healthy and stress-free, efficient movement style. And straight away, it makes you realize how you use all of you. If you've lost that spring in your step, you have often lost that capacity to do anything with any meaningfulness.
Got it. So in this second clip, we're introducing a vertical range of motion. We've gone from forward and back, back, forward, and moving, lengthening that range. Now we're working down to up. And this is an absolutely essential factor in expressing rebound, right?
Yeah, it's such a vital component of anybody's life, and their ability to do it with their body is reflected in how they approach doing it in reality. So, of course, going forward and back is, of course, something that we all do every day, but getting down to the floor to collect something off the floor and stand back up again, and that might just include ourselves getting out of bed. Firstly, we come out of the bed and go down to the ground to stand up, to go to the washroom or get dressed. It's very important that most people focus on getting up and doing squats to stand up. But it's so important how we understand how to manage our integrity of shape, that our shape doesn't compromise our ability to go down to the floor. Because if it's compromised, it becomes very hard and a real struggle to manage the weight of ourselves in the blueprint and arena of our own size. So it's very important, where are our feet? Where are in the relation to the rest of the body above them? And all too often, people plant their heels down and collapse their spine in order to concertina the ankle, knee, and hip so they can get down to the floor, whether to go on the ground or collect something from the ground and stand up with it. And you see this in gyms all the time, where they're always trying to make you do stationary lifts and stationary pushes and stationary pulls. But movement isn't a stationary aspect of life. Movement is exactly in the very title. It's moving. And you need to be able to adapt in motion to the motion you're experiencing. So knowing how to make these subtle micro changes whilst you're in motion, so as you feel your structure being compromised by the directional change we're doing now, we're taking our whole body weight towards the floor and have the ability to stop anywhere along that journey. So like very much like being in an elevator in a building that we're in now, and we're on the 6th story, I don't want it to just go straight to the bottom and have no ability to stop anywhere along those various series of floors. I should be able to start my journey down, change my mind, and go back up. I should be able to come all the way down to the bottom and pause and come all the way back up in the same efficient way. What you don't want is this pulley scenario where you drop and you catch yourself and then collapse into your foundation and then have to propel yourself up using a very inefficient thrust or a very violent change of speed, because it is quite violent internally, although it might not appear so externally. So what we're looking for is always efficiency of change, and recognizing, like you saw, when you have your certain style of movement as you go to the floor, when you see and recognize that limitation in your feet, in your knees, and your hips because of what's happened in your past, you immediately compromise the location and position of your whole upper body, particularly your ribs and your neck. And they fall to the ground,
Yeah.
irrespective of your legs saying, please don't do that. because the task was to go to the floor. So you feel you must complete it. So you do get to the floor. But the way you get to the floor, notice how inhibiting it is to get up from the floor with if you were to add something to that shape, like a weight, like a bag, like a set of towels, like some laundry, let alone something heavier. So it's very important that you recognize how you're getting there, as you see in the clip, and how you then decide how you come back up to continue, maybe back into that forward and backward motion you did in the first clip. And everybody has their own variation of this because we all have different capacities through the various bone arrangement that we've created and formed over our life and the various insults and traumas and sporting exploits we've taken part in to create this very asymmetrical structure. Like you said, it was compromised. You were avoiding one side because you know you have a limitation there. It hurts if you overwhelm it with more weight
Yeah.
and more expectation of ability. But you must share it out. It must be a collaborative approach where you're doing this really effective force transmission of energy going through you from the ground and out to the ceiling at all times. And as we know on our course, and we explain this really well, don't we? We make sure we enhance the art of useful tensegrity in motion through our architectural fabric, which we know as fascia.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And what was so great about it was that instead of me compensating for something, what I did was unravel it and find my own center. Because this is something we do in yoga as well. The standard approach in yoga, stand with your feet hip width apart on the mat. So we take this
Yep.
stable, wider stride. And of course,
Yep.
when we're walking, that actually doesn't promote natural walking motion. So what I absolutely love about it is it's these tiny micro movements have completely transformed the way I walk, the distance I can walk without being tired, therefore my vitality. And the natural result of working with Rebound is having that spring in my step. And it's incredible because as I'm getting older, even with injuries that I've endured, I'm getting stronger, swifter, lighter. It's more fun.
It's this, the phrase is longevity of choice of the choices I want to have longevity to make.
Yeah.
And it's really important. Like if you want to be vibrant and have durability throughout every one of our days, if you can't get to the ground and get up, life becomes really inconvenient. If you can't walk with a spring in your step, who wants to go for a bloody walk? So just doing these tiny exercise experiences and these really movement explorations will really transform and it will revolutionize the way you think about healthy, meaningful movement. So going forward and back is super important. And in the second clip, as you notice, we use the ball. It really helps you orientate the larger mass of your body above the blueprint your feet are providing you beneath you. So remember, don't go too wide with your feet, you see, because then you've got this really excessive reliance on stability on a wide base like a building has as it's not trying to move. We want this narrowness of foundation. So it's right beneath us. So it allows us to propel ourselves in any direction we choose to go with the load we're trying to carry, be that ourselves or some of the external load we must support with ourselves.
Like picking up kids or picking up shopping. It's an external load, right? It's with everything. So this clip really does bring home this sense of dynamic instability, which before you called it a wobble. And I love that because I
Yep.
wobble and sometimes I stumble, but I recover and recollect myself so intuitively and instinctively now. It's really a privilege. It's brilliant. I love it.
It's that ability to recover.
Yeah.
Yes, and know that recovery is possible because of the instability you invite into your movement style. This desperate need to have things so hard and fixed and this secure foundation is what limits exploration of movement style, or it reveals the limitation and the vulnerability you have in motion. So people, they refrain from doing it. So just simply getting to the floor and getting back up reveals a whole truth of effects inside the body that we can easily introduce a better approach and a better access to that longevity of choice of doing them.
Love it. It's so empowering.
Have fun.
So, in this last clip, one of the things that we see is one of us lying down, one of us sitting, so that we have different variations. We've seen us moving up right now, and we've seen us lying down.
Yep.
We've seen us sitting, and obviously we did work on our knees as well. We do all sorts. Each of the 5 R's is very thorough in animating the whole body. And in this one, we're bringing together everything we've learned, aren't we, about tempo and about creating the appropriate framework, about giving the body its optimum chances to reveal its predispositions and its tendencies, but to sort of lovingly restore its ability to rebound. We're like waking up the human blueprint in many ways. And what I loved about this particular one was, and I remember it very clearly, is waking something up while the rest of my body's completely resting on the floor, but it's not inactive, it's conscious, it's conscientious. But I'm bringing this quality of rebound through the leg and through the foot. And then, of course, Helen does exactly the same thing, but from a slightly different position. And what was the dynamic behind that, Paul, as we finish up this piece on why rebound is such an exquisite thing to rediscover and remember for ourselves?
Well, like I just said, that movement reveals the truth. And when you're in that vertical situation, as most of us are in motion, we often see the adaptation of choices that have occurred on our behalf by our body. And that often results in different bony arrangements that are limited or restricted, and we don't have the freedom to move all bones all the time like we should. So what we do then, when we recognize these limitations in motion vertically, or a bias to moving a certain way in a vertical situation, and we want to introduce change, it's a really nice way to bring this sub-maximal load down to the ground, take away the weight-bearing nature of movement and bring it to that supine position. And we can also do things in a prone or lateral one, but it's a nice place to be, to experience a sense of peace and calm as you introduce and become more familiar with why you're limited. So the tissue inside the body, beneath the skin and around the skeletal body and within the bones themselves, we want to make sure we put them in such a situation that we help stimulate a lovely change of consistency of the variation of textures within the fabric that it is. So it's one fabric with a million variations of texture, but we want to make sure that they're always collaborating when we stimulate movement through them. So lying in this position and putting your foot on that ball, which is a brilliant external prop. So it gives you the opportunity to recognize this external influence so you can really harness and refine the internal response you need to unravel some of these limitations you found when you're vertical, or enhance the quality of the fabric that you need to be of a certain consistency so it performs with the least amount of limitations within it.
Well, that whole sequence, which is the entire module of Rebound in our practitioner training, is obviously available to you if you want to come and find out more about Myofascial Magic in Action. But I hope this has given you a taste and lots of really useful information about something that happens before we even get to the performance, and something that gathers, restores, and enhances our innermost resources. So, Paul, as ever, it was an absolute pleasure to work with you at the time. I love how this last clip showed the difference between sitting and lying. And obviously, in other modules, we explore side lying and prone and all sorts of positions. It's almost like the prehab that we can do, because it instills in us a way to avoid injury and insult, to kind of naturally, reflexively not get ourselves into a pickle and avoid ever needing rehab. So I hope you've enjoyed listening to this. Paul and I welcome you to consider joining us at Myofascial Magic in Action, where we extensively train you in this fabulous resource, reminding your clients, be they athletes or the elderly, be they people going through injury rehabilitation, or young people seeking to move better for performance, be it ballet or boxing, all sorts. We have people of all types of practice, including manual as well as movement therapy. It's magical work. I absolutely love doing it with you, Paul.
It's a joy. It's great to see that we're constantly developing, not only in our ability to move, but understand why we choose to move a certain way, because we're never the finished article. And thank God we always have the opportunity to influence how we proceed with our life in an environment that is of co-learning. And we don't criticize, but we are constructive with our comments. And we all share and benefit from the variety of experience that are on the course. And we love meeting you all. We love experiencing what's happening around the world. And feel free to come and join our community. You're all welcome whenever you're available to attend.
Oh my goodness, Myofascial Magic in Action. You're super welcome. You can book a discovery call with us, and we love to support you. We love to assist you. We love to share with you, and we want this work out in the world, because from embryo to elder, we're always expressing our resilience, our adaptation, and our vitality. So here's to it. Take care.
Bye, guys.